You're about to feel genuinely betrayed by your own brain. Not because you're gullible, because the lies were that good. Engineered by governments, corporations, and dead men who needed a better story than the truth. The Great Wall, the Illuminati, diamonds, Sherlock Holmes. Every single one of them, a lie so perfectly constructed it survived centuries of scrutiny. And here's the thing that should actually terrify you. Most of these weren't accidents. They were decisions. 22 facts you've believed your entire life. Every single one of them is fiction. So, before we get into the wreckage, these aren't obscure myths buried in academic journals. These are things taught in schools, printed in textbooks, repeated by teachers who were lied to by their teachers. The chain of deception goes back further than you think. And once you hear the truth, you can't unhear it. 1. The Great Wall, visible from space. Every school child learns it. The Great Wall of China is the only man-made structure visible from the moon. It's also completely, astronomically false. The wall stretches over 13,000 miles, but it's only about 20 feet wide. Seeing it from the moon would be like trying to spot a single human hair from 2 miles away. Astronauts have confirmed it. The myth existed before space travel even began. It just sounded too good to fact-check. 2. The Illuminati's world domination, the all-seeing eye, the shadowy boardroom, the secret society pulling the strings of every war, every election, every Wi-Fi outage. The real Bavarian Illuminati was founded in 1776. A small group of Enlightenment intellectuals who wanted to promote reason over superstition. They probably spent their meetings arguing about Kant over stale crackers. The government shut them down after 10 years. They couldn't organize their way out of Bavaria, let alone run the planet. 3. St. Patrick and the Snakes. The legend is glorious. St. Patrick, armed with faith and fury, drove every snake out of Ireland in a single divine act of pest control. There's just one problem. Ireland never had snakes. The island was cut off from the mainland by water long before snakes could migrate there after the Ice Age. The snakes were a metaphor for the pagan religions Patrick replaced with Christianity. He didn't slay reptiles. He performed a very effective, very metaphorical rebrand on an entire belief system. 4. Absinthe and the hallucinations. The Green Fairy. The drink of tortured artists. The substance so dangerous it was banned for nearly a century for inducing wild, vivid hallucinations. All of it a smear campaign. The French wine industry, losing market share to the popular green spirit in the late 1800s, funded a propaganda effort to destroy absinthe's reputation. Yes, it contains thujone. No, you would die from alcohol poisoning 10 times over before you felt any psychoactive effects. The artists weren't having visions, they were just drunk. 5. Disney killed the lemmings. The image is iconic. Thousands of lemmings marching single file off a cliff, driven by a mysterious suicidal instinct. The ultimate metaphor for mindless conformity. Disney manufactured it. For their 1958 nature documentary White Wilderness, the film crew couldn't capture the footage they wanted. So they bought lemmings, flew them to a cliff overlooking a river, and herded them off the edge with brooms. Disney faked a natural phenomenon by actively pushing animals to their deaths, and won an Oscar for it. 6. Diamonds are forever rare. Diamonds are the ultimate symbol of eternal love. Rare, precious, irreplaceable. The tradition of the diamond engagement ring stretches back through the ages. Actually, diamonds are one of the most common gems on Earth. In the 20th century, De Beers established a global monopoly, hoarded supply to inflate prices, then hired an ad agency in the 1940s that invented the slogan, "A diamond is forever." And with it, the entire tradition of the diamond engagement ring. They didn't sell a product, they sold an idea, and we're all still paying for it. 7. Elementary, my dear Watson. Sherlock Holmes's most iconic line, the phrase that defines the character. The words every actor playing Holmes has delivered with smug satisfaction. Arthur Conan Doyle never wrote it, not once. Holmes says, elementary, He says, "My dear Watson." But the two phrases are never combined in any of the original stories. The line was invented decades later in theatrical adaptations and burned so deeply into popular culture that it was retroactively attributed to the source. Conan Doyle would have been baffled that his character's most famous line was one he never bothered to write. 8. Medieval Flat Earth Believers. The Dark Ages, a time of ignorance, superstition, and universal belief that the Earth was a flat disk. Columbus bravely sailed against the warnings of a backwards, flat Earth-obsessed church. This is a lie invented in the 19th century to make medieval people look stupid. Educated Europeans had known the Earth was spherical since the ancient Greeks. They'd been reading Aristotle and Ptolemy for centuries. The real debate Columbus faced wasn't about the Earth's shape. His critics correctly argued his math was terrible and the planet was far larger than he calculated. He was wrong. They were right. 9. The Titanic was unsinkable. The White Star Line advertised their magnificent ship as unsinkable. God himself couldn't sink it. The hubris was legendary. They never said that. The actual phrase used, in a single 1911 trade publication, was practically unsinkable. The media dropped the practically because "unsinkable ship sinks" is a headline that writes itself. Nobody lets boring accuracy get in the way of a perfect story. It's the corporate equivalent of saying a phone is water-resistant, then watching someone drown it in a swimming pool. 10. Cleopatra, the Egyptian Beauty. Hollywood gave us Elizabeth Taylor in heavy kohl eyeliner, the exotic Egyptian queen, irresistible to every powerful man in Rome. Cleopatra wasn't Egyptian. She was the last ruler of a Greek dynasty that had been in Egypt for nearly 300 years. She was about as Egyptian as a Philly cheesesteak is from Philadelphia. And coins minted during her reign show a woman with a prominent hooked nose and sharp chin, not a conventional beauty by any standard. Her real weapon wasn't her face, it was her brain. She spoke 9 languages and was the most brilliant political strategist of her era. 11. Newton's apple bonk. The story is perfect. Isaac Newton sits under a tree, an apple falls, bonks him on the head, and, eureka, gravity is discovered. The bonk is a later addition to spice things up. Newton himself described the moment as sitting in a contemplative mood, watching an apple fall from a window and wondering why it fell straight down rather than sideways or upward. No slapstick, no concussion, just a quiet moment of observation that produced one of the greatest scientific breakthroughs in human history. Turns out genius is less about getting hit in the head and more about just paying attention. 12. The Iron Maiden torture device. The spiked iron coffin, the medieval dungeon staple, the instrument of slow, agonizing death that appears in every Hollywood depiction of the Middle Ages. It's a complete fabrication. There is zero historical evidence the Iron Maiden was ever used as a torture device in the Middle Ages. It was assembled in the late 1700s from mismatched museum artifacts. A morbid art piece designed to shock paying visitors. The Middle Ages had genuinely horrific torture methods. They didn't need this over-the-top prop that someone invented for entertainment centuries later. 13. Abner Doubleday invented baseball. The all-American origin story. Civil War hero Abner Doubleday, in a dirt field in Cooperstown, New York, invents the national pastime, 100% fabricated. A 1907 commission was tasked with finding a purely American inventor for baseball, specifically to deny its obvious roots in the English game of rounders. They picked a famous dead man and pinned the whole thing on him. Doubleday's own diaries are full of military matters. He never once mentioned baseball. America literally invented a fake inventor to win a cultural argument against the British. 14. General Tso's authentic Chinese chicken. The beloved takeout staple, crispy, sweet, sticky, and supposedly named after a formidable 19th century Chinese military commander from Hunan province. It was invented in New York City in the 1970s by a chef who wanted something that would appeal to the American palate, meaning fry it and drown it in a sweet sauce. Ask for General Tso's chicken in Hunan province today and you'll get blank stares. The real General So ate simple regional cuisine his entire life and would be utterly baffled to learn his legacy in America involves sticky battered nuggets. 15. The 300 Spartans stood alone. 300 ripped, stoic warriors against a million-man Persian army. The ultimate underdog story. The most heroic last stand in history. The story conveniently omits the other 7,000 Greeks who were also there. Soldiers from Thespiae, Thebes, and other city-states who fought and died alongside the Spartans at Thermopylae in 480 BCE. The Spartans were the elite corps, but they had massive support. The narrative was simplified because, honestly, 7,300 Greeks fight valiantly just doesn't have the same ring to it. 16. Napoleon was short. The Napoleon complex. The punchline of 1,000 jokes. The little emperor with the massive ego, compensating for his tiny stature. Napoleon stood 5 feet 7 inches, slightly above average for a Frenchman of his era. The confusion arose from 2 different measurement systems, French and British inches. His post-mortem recorded 5 feet 2 inches in pre-metric French units, which British doctors, who had spent decades at war with the man, were happy to leave unclarified. He was surrounded by the old guard, his elite infantry, who had a minimum height requirement of 5 feet 10 inches. Next to them, anyone looks small. The man who said, "What is history but a set of lies agreed upon," became the victim of exactly that. 17. The Mozart effect makes babies smarter. In the 1990s, parents across the world rushed to buy Baby Einstein CDs, convinced that playing Mozart would turn their infants into tiny geniuses. The entire craze was based on a catastrophic misreading of a single 1993 study conducted on college students, not babies, that found a temporary 10-minute improvement in spatial reasoning after listening to one Mozart sonata. No lasting IQ increase. No infant brain development. From that one flimsy data point, a multi-million-dollar industry was born. The fastest way to sell anything is to tell parents it will make their kids smarter. 18. Ancient Greek statues were always white. The pristine white marble. The timeless, elegant minimalism of classical antiquity. The pure, monochrome aesthetic that inspired the Renaissance and every museum since. Those statues were originally painted in vivid, clashing, almost garish colors. Reds, blues, greens, yellows covering every surface with painted irises, eyelashes, and bronze accessories. The paint wore off over millennia. Renaissance artists who rediscovered the bare marble assumed it was intentional and built an entire aesthetic movement around an accident of time. The ancients weren't minimalists. They had the color palette of a 1980s music video. 19. The Wild West was a lawless shooting gallery. 2 gunslingers, a dusty main street, a clock tower striking noon. The quick-draw duel, the defining image of the American frontier, almost entirely fiction. Organized high-noon shootouts were extraordinarily rare. Most frontier towns had strict gun control. Visitors were required to check their firearms at the sheriff's office upon arrival. Violent deaths were far more likely in drunken saloon brawls or back-alley ambushes than formal duels. The romanticized gunslinger was invented by dime novels and perfected by Hollywood. The reality was mostly cattle disputes and property law. 20. Cowboys were white. John Wayne, Clint Eastwood, the rugged, sun-weathered white man on horseback, the iconic image of the American West. Historians estimate that up to 25% of all cowboys during the great cattle drives of the late 19th century were African American, many of them former slaves who possessed extraordinary skills with horses and cattle, seeking a life of greater freedom on the frontier. A huge number were also Mexican vaqueros, from whom the entire American cowboy tradition, the terminology, the clothing, the techniques, was directly borrowed. The iconic American cowboy was multicultural. That story has been almost entirely erased. 21. Nero fiddled. While Rome burned, the image is eternal. The deranged emperor on his palace balcony, playing his fiddle with a smirk while his city turned to ash in 64 AD. Factually impossible on 2 counts. The fiddle wouldn't be invented for another 1,000 years. If Nero played anything, it was a lyre. And the historian Tacitus, writing closest to the event, places Nero 35 miles away in Antium when the fire broke out. He rushed back to organize relief efforts, opened his private gardens to house the homeless, and used his own funds to feed the displaced. The story was almost certainly propaganda spread by his political enemies. He wasn't perfect, but he didn't fiddle. 22. The Priory of Sion's Ancient Secret. Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code introduced millions to the Priory of Sion, an ancient secret society guarding the bloodline of Jesus Christ, with members including Isaac Newton and Leonardo da Vinci. The Priory of Sion was invented in 1956, not 1056, 1956. A French con artist named Pierre Plantard, desperate to fabricate a royal bloodline for himself, forged a series of documents, planted them in the French National Library, and tricked multiple authors into writing books about his invented secret society. One bored fraudster with a library card rewrote history for millions of readers, and nobody checked.